Good evening, everyone. We're back to the easy path to omniscience. So we'll start with some breathing meditation and a body scan. So you'll want to sit comfortably. If you remember the position we talked about, the most important thing is to have your spine upright, your hands in your lap, right on the left, thumbs touching. So we'll start with, lead us through a short body scan, and then we'll do some breathing meditation. So let's start by feeling our body in the space that we're in, becoming aware of the contact places where against the chair, your cushion, your feet against the floor, your hands in your lap. Tune into those physical sensations. And now gently start to scan, first with your legs and your thighs, your calves, your feet. Turn your attention there. Become aware of any areas of tightness, tension, discomfort. And let those areas just relax. Breathe through them gently. Focus on the sensations as you breathe into those areas. Now turn your attention to your belly. See if you're holding any tightness. Become aware of your breathing pattern. Is your belly filling up with air, or are you just breathing into your chest? Let the tension out of your stomach. Allow yourself to breathe. And now move your attention to your chest and your back, your arms. Just gently scan. You might want to lift your shoulders up to let the tension out of those muscles, and then let them drop. And then gently move your attention to your head, scalp, face, throat, your jaw muscles, your eye muscles. Just note any tension. Gently smile. Let the tension relax. Let your eyes be soft. Become aware of the change in the feeling of your body as a whole. And now that we've prepared the body, turn your attention to the physical sensations of breathing. And for tonight, let's use the abdomen. Feel the rising and falling of your stomach. Now just breathe naturally. There's nothing else to be done. So we'll enjoy doing this for a few minutes. We do this meditation to bring our mind to a neutral or a virtuous state. So with this mind, now visualize in the space in front of you a precious throne that's both high and wide. It's supported by 8 great snow lions. And on a seat, a multicolored lotus, a moon, and sun disk is your kind spiritual mentor in the form of the Shakyamuni Buddha. The color of his body is pure gold. On his head, he has the crown protuberance. He has 1 face and 2 hands. The right hand touches the earth in the earth-touching gesture. The left hand is in meditation posture. And this holds an alms bowl full of nectar. He wears the 3 saffron robes of a monastic. His body is made of pure light and adorned with all the signs and marks of a Buddha. And light rays flow from the body of the Buddha. He's seated in the Vajra posture. Around him are all the direct and indirect spiritual mentors, the deities, the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, heroes, heroines, and an assembly of Arya Dharma protectors. In front of him are stands that are just exquisite. The teachings of the Buddha are sitting on these, and they're made of light. And the sounds of the Dharma fill the air. And now imagine all of those beings in this refuge field look upon you with joy, peace, bliss, contentment. And then seeing their compassion and their great virtue generate great faith in them. Visualize around you all sentient beings. Your mother of this life on your left, your father of this life on your right, friends and family around you. Any difficult people in front of you, all facing the Buddha. And the strangers filling the expanse of space. I'll start with the Refuge, Bodhicitta prayer. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So feel that you've come under the protection of the three jewels. Now we'll turn our attention to all sentient beings, and with this wish to generate these attitudes on our own mind stream, we'll recite the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. A moment to contemplate that. In particular, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will quickly, very quickly, realize perfect, consummate Buddhahood. To that end, I will now meditate on the stages of the path to awakening by the means of the profound practice of Guru Deity Yoga. Now we'll do the 7-limb prayer together. So imagine the Buddha and all the holy beings, all the sentient beings around you, and we're leading them. So as we say each of these, generate the visualization and the feeling in your mind for each of the 7 limbs. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my destructive actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and others to the Great Awakening. I'll imagine offering everything beautiful in the universe, everything in the universe, offering this all to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And we can do this multiple times and try to do it without any sense of loss, just a sense of joy in giving. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. The objects of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, friends, enemies, and strangers, my body, wealth, and enjoyments, I offer these without any sense of loss. Please accept them with pleasure and inspire me and others to be free from the 3 poisonous attitudes. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Glorious and precious root Guru, sit upon the lotus and moon seat on my crown, guiding me with your great kindness. Bestow upon me the attainments of your body, speech, and mind, the eyes through whom the vast scriptures are seen, supreme doors for the fortunate who would cross over to spiritual freedom, illuminators whose wise means vibrate with compassion. To the entire line of spiritual mentors, I make request. Now imagine the Buddha in front of you is made a replica, so there's a Buddha also on the crown of your head. And light flows into you from this Buddha on the crown of your head, inspiring you, purifying you, helping you to have all the understandings of the teachings. So we'll recite the Buddha's mantra as we do this visualization. Tayata O Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. 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 All parts of the Guru deity's body on your head emanate an assembly consisting of spiritual mentors, deities, the 3 jewels, heroes, heroines, Dharma protectors, and guardians that fill space. Visualize all of these objects of refuge surrounding the Guru deity on the crown, around your head. Keeping in mind all of their good qualities of body, speech, and mind, and their activities as well. Think, henceforth, please protect me and all sentient beings from the fears and dangers of cyclic existence as a whole, and from those of the lower realms. And with intense aspiration in your heart, take refuge in the spiritual mentor, the deities, and the 3 jewels. A stream of nectar flows from the 3 jewels, dissolving into you and into all the other sentient beings around you. Feel you've been purified of any unwholesome karma all negativities and obscurations. The 3 Jewels inspiration enters your mind and enhances your lifespan, merit, and qualities of scriptural knowledge and realizations. So in your mind, take refuge 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times. With the awareness of the temporary and ultimate benefits of taking refuge in the 3 Jewels, make the determination to train thoroughly in the refuge precepts. Feel that your connection to the 3 Jewels is firm and steady. You have your own personal relationship with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So you can turn to them no matter what's going on. So we're going to do a few Lamrim meditations tonight. We're in the topic of refuge. And oftentimes when we address this topic, we think about the analogy of ourselves being like a sick person, and we're trying to be cured. So we turn to the Buddha as a doctor, the Dharma as the medicine, and the Sangha as the nurses. When I first moved here, Venerable taught me this, relying on the 6 ideas, and I thought we would do this meditation this way tonight. So when you can do this when you wake up in the morning. So first, say to yourself, you want to think of yourself as a sick person. So when I used to do this, I would always say, I see myself as a sick person. It's like we have a chronic illness. These afflictions, like attachment, are like a long-lasting illness. They're intractable. So long as we're stuck in samsara. Excuse me. Kind of like this cough. Intractable. So our afflictions cause us much suffering. So we have to recognize ourselves as being sick in this way. This is our situation. Apply that to your own life. If we weren't sick, meditating in this way wouldn't make any sense. It would be misguided. But we can recognize within ourselves these poisons of attachment, hostility, and ignorance. And often we can't recognize these. But to the degree that we understand this, in that sense, we can be very aware of this. So you can see yourself as a sick person in this way. And then think of the Buddha as the doctor. Think about how it is when you're facing an illness that's very disturbing and fearful because you don't know what's going on, and how delighted you are to go to someone who is really skilled and can help you, and you listen with a lot of respect. So in this way, think of the Buddha as a teacher who imparts the teachings in the way that a doctor dispenses medicine. Make that real in your own experience. The Buddha is the doctor. And now the third point is to see the Dharma as the medicine. So just like we would have high regard for some kind of medicine that works well, we want to view the medicine prescribed by the Buddha in the same way. So we need to hold the teachings in high esteem and not forget them, especially when we need them most. So think about any understandings you have of the Dharma, how they have been like medicine, a salve for the wound of the mind. Fourth point is to think that practicing sincerely is the way to cure your disease. So like a sick person who goes to the doctor, if they don't take the medicine prescribed, they just put it in their medicine cabinet or whatever, you can't really help them. So in the same way, with the Dharma, trying something once or twice isn't really sufficient. Or understanding lots of words and reading a lot, but not ever engaging in practice. For this to really take hold, you have to see yourself as a sick person in the sense of knowing that you need to change. Same old will lead to the same old results. So know that we need the Dharma to transform our mind, and we do that by putting it into practice. So think about what that means in terms of your own practice, in terms of what do you need to adopt and what do you need to cast aside. How can you put the meaning of what you've heard into practice? And then recall that the Buddha is reliable and the Dharma is non-deceptive. So develop respect by remembering the qualities of the Buddha. See how the Buddha is free from the extreme of staying in cyclic existence and the extreme of self-complacent peace. Recognize the skill and all the the skillful means that the Buddha has to free everyone from fear, from all fears. Think about how all the methods work with all the various mind states. Consider that the Buddha has equal compassion for everyone. regardless of if the person has faith in them or not. And then think about how the Buddha fulfills the aims of all beings, whether or not they help the Buddha. So think of these qualities. Imagine a being with all of these qualities, completely reliable. And then the sixth point is, may the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, flourish for a long time. Think how wonderful it is to have these teachings and wish that they will remain in the world for a long time. Make a determination to follow these reliable guides, the Triple Gem, and put their teachings into practice. Because the Dharma that we internalize is the real refuge. I'd like to lead this contemplation that His Holiness wrote. So it has a few 15 points here, so they're short though. But I think it brings to mind what we want to see within our own experience. So consider these insights. Mistaking people and things as having inherent existence gives rise to more mistaken thinking. Look for that in your own life. Mistaken thinking generates the afflictive emotions of clinging attachment, hatred, jealousy, laziness. Is that true in your own experience? Can you see that? These destructive emotions lead to actions or karmas that have been infected by these emotions. Is that true or false? These actions leave imprints in the mind that drive the painful round of repeated births. So in this case, ignorance is the root of cyclic existence. And here we're talking about this active misconception of how we see persons and things as independent entities existing in their own right, completely autonomous, unrelated. When we see a jerk, they're a jerk through and through. No causes, no dependent arising. This ignorance is uprooted by the realization that all phenomena are interrelated and interdependent entities. If phenomena did exist the way they appear, if they existed established on their own side, then dependence on other factors couldn't be possible. But your own experience shows you that interdependence is truly the way of things. So now see how your mental outlook exaggerates in a mistaken way. So it gives people a status and things a status that they don't have. People and things don't exist in the way they appear. See how when we make this exaggeration, making someone all evil or all virtuous, then we generate them as an object to be hated or loved, lusted after in an unhealthy way. See how when you are able to recognize that exaggeration, how the emotion is diminished, and you can pull back from that distortion. So good and bad, favorable and unfavorable do exist, but not in the concrete way that they appear when they're viewed by a mind that's filled with affliction, clinging attachment or hatred. If you can see this, that the afflictions are mistaken, the ignorance they're based on, thinking that things exist in their own right is also mistaken. If you can see this, then you will know that the wisdom that realizes dependent arising and emptiness is a valid way to be thinking. It's founded in valid cognition. We have a little inkling of this. When you cultivate this insight more and more, it will become stronger and stronger because it's valid, it's reliable. And by doing this, you will be able to see that enlightenment is possible. You will be able to see in your own experience that reflecting on dependent arising and emptiness will bring insight that helps you in your daily life and also will help you to develop an inferential understanding of emptiness, and even a direct perception of it. And with this, you can understand eventually that Buddhahood is completely possible. Why? The truth of dependent arising and emptiness are the keys for us to stop all of our destructive thoughts. Those who have some experience of this, these are cessations in the paths in their mind. This is the spiritual community. And those who have brought it to full completion and perfection are the Buddhas. So when these appear to your mind in this way, you'll see how reasonable it is to turn to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha for refuge. Take your own life and situation as an example. Recognize that all sentient beings everywhere want happiness and don't want suffering. But they come under the influence of suffering. So seek for your own full awakening, the omniscient mind of a Buddha, in order to help them. And do this by turning to the 3 jewels for refuge. The realized doctrine is the actual refuge. The Buddha is the teacher of refuge. And the spiritual community includes those who help you to attain this deep refuge. Make firm in your mind what you have understood from this last 30, 40 minutes. So for me, what I'm aware of is that there's no blind faith in this meditation. It's all based on our own experience. And this is how we get to a real sense of refuge. Because that's the Dharma is the real refuge. And what is the Dharma? In this sense, it's the true paths, the understandings that we have, especially when they're conjoined with the direct realization of emptiness, and the true cessations, where we would abandon a portion of the afflictions. So this is, although we rely on things external to us in the beginning, it all ends up turning inside, because what we eventually rely on are our own realizations and cessations. When Venerable Chodron taught this teaching on refuge, it was the day after Geshe Sopa had passed away, and she spent a little bit of time helping us to understand the role of a teacher in our practice. Basically, I think she was trying to help us to really take things inside. Really, nothing changes when her teachers pass away. And for her, as a disciple of those people, of those great teachers, nothing changes in the sense of they're still there for her. It's like, I think I heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama say this about Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. The energy is still there. It was very joyful. It's like that was one of his teachers. They were teachers to each other. So she said, you still have the same relationship after they've died, or just like when they travel. We're still turning our minds to the things they've taught us. So she's trying to get us away from any kind of notion of relying on the person's personality, or, So we have to work on our side with all of our attachment, because that's what we do. We attach to people and things. That's not, so their personality or their physical presence aren't what we want to eventually be relying on. Of course, like children, we do it first, but the whole idea is as we put the meaning of what they teach us into practice, then we do it for ourselves. So what she says is when difficulties arise, she just does a 911 in her mind. She said that so many times. So then, what that means is making this space of like, what would they tell me in this situation? And then the wisdom of your own mind that's heard all these teachings and integrated things will just, bring forth what they would have taught, or even your memory. If you don't have to, maybe similar things have come up, so you can go back and think about, similar situations, but then you also have to integrate things, because every situation's kind of different. You don't have the same exact parts coming together, so that's what it means to integrate things. So when she talked about the Dharma being the real refuge, she explained that, yes, we start externally with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha that are outside of us, but that actually internally what happens is first our mind stream becomes the Dharma refuge, and that's when we directly perceive emptiness and attain true cessations. So that's the mind becoming the Dharma refuge. And then we become the Sangha refuge, because we become someone who has these kind of realizations. And then when we develop the true paths further, and all of the true cessations are completely, and all of our defilements are completely abandoned fully, because each true cessation is until you're fully awakened, you're only abandoning part of the defilements. You've completely abandoned a portion. That's what it means. But someone who becomes a Buddha has taken care of all of them. So that's where we become, then when we become a Buddha. And then we become the Buddha refuge. So that's what happens in our own evolution in our spiritual practice. First we develop the Dharma refuge in our mind. Then we become the Sangha refuge because we're these beings who have these direct realizations of emptiness. And then you use that scouring pad of emptiness and clear out all your defilements fully and become a Buddha. And you're the Buddha refuge then. Does that make sense? Just reviewing. So, she spent some time talking to us about a verse from Dignaga where he paid homage to the Buddha. And the Dignaga said, "I bow to the one who has become reliable, starting out intent on benefiting migrating beings, followed by generating the wisdom that shows the way, and then reaching the state of the one gone to bliss, and finally emerging as the protector." So this was showing us how the Buddha is reliable and how also the Buddha is a dependent arising. He's not some absolute being, but he's a being just like us who started out how we did and then through doing these practices became a Buddha, step by step, gradually developing the qualities. So that's important to understand so that we understand the way our own practice works. What's so inspiring about a Buddha is that when you understand how the Buddha created himself, you see that he's got the same basic ingredients that we have already in our mind stream. So that's kind of what she got into, and we'll try to explain that tonight. So, sticking first with these qualities. So each of these shows how the Buddha is reliable. So he starts out, he's reliable because he's intent on benefiting migrating beings. So he's totally dedicated to working for others. He sees all the problems that we have, all the dukkha, and our total ignorance sometimes. And so he sees that's a pretty desperate situation, and this helps the Buddha, to generate love and compassion. And because of that, he realized that he needed to find the way to liberation. And so that gave rise, through his own efforts, he found the wisdom that shows the path. And so this is the exalted wisdom that realizes emptiness. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking how one time when I was reading the life story of the Buddha, I thought, wow, people would think he was a deadbeat dad. Mm-hmm. But if you really think about this little teaching right here, you see that he had to find a way. He saw the profundity and the depth and the breadth of the problem that we were all in, and that culture had an understanding of the need to become liberated. He was sitting in the midst of a culture where becoming liberated was a big topic, and he just saw that, wow, this is the best thing to be doing. I need to leave my wife and my newborn. Why? Because he could see that everything was a dead end. There was no choice, in a way. Once you see the situation that we're in the way that we understand this as Buddhists, it's just like, what else are you going to do? You've got to find a way out. That would be like, he saw the first two noble truths, but the third and fourth weren't there. Well, that's, what good could he do for his wife and his kids? I mean, they were taken care of just fine. They had everything they needed, So it was like, it really, so he had to come to a way to develop this wisdom. So he directly realized subtle dependent arising, the emptiness of inherent existence, found the way to abandon all the defilements and realize all of his good qualities, and that in that way becomes the Buddha, which is the Sugata, the one gone to ultimate peace of non-abiding nirvana. And so by doing this, by developing himself so fully, completely, then he's perfectly equipped to help and protect sentient beings. And the main way he does this is by teaching them. And all of what the Buddha teaches, he knows from his own experience and insight. And in this way, he becomes our protector. It's these qualities, these 4 qualities that makes him reliable, trustworthy, and a valid spiritual guide. And his motivation is completely pure. His wisdom is unobstructed, and he has no reason to deceive anyone. So, fully trustable being. And the most precious of the Buddha's qualities is his speech, and then the teachings of the Dharma, because that's how we can help ourselves by understanding those. We can get rid of our afflictions and generate all of our good qualities. And so the Buddha is actually teaching continuously, but on our side we're not tuned in. Like a radio station, we're not on that station a lot of the time. And so the one point Venerable made in this teaching was, why aren't we tuned in, and why are we too busy, and why do we want can you simplify the Dharma and give me a condensed version, a shortcut to realizations? That's the way she put it, and it just reminds me so much of what comes up in everyone, like, why does this path take so long, kind of thing, So that's not what the Buddha promised. He didn't promise a shortcut. But then she had to clarify that this text is called Easy Path, not because it's a shortcut, but because they condensed and ordered everything so well, so it was easy to understand. It wasn't like it was like the short version. So you could kind of summarize this little part, that how the Buddha protects us is by teaching the Four Noble Truths and by teaching the method to actualizing this non-abiding nirvana. And he teaches from his own experience and insight, and then that's how he's become our protector. And so then actually this is the basis of a proof that Dharmakirti set out based on these verses by Dignaga. And Venerable Children received teachings on them from Geshe Nawang Darge. And this proof actually proves Buddhahood. So as we have a chance sometime, I think these teachings are the ones that, what's the name of the nun in Dharamsala who got her Geshe degree? Geshe Wangmo. Geshe Wangmo. Yeah, she's working on this. His Holiness has her working on this chapter 2 from Dharmakirti. This is what she's translating and actually was teaching on in the fall. So we'll have the chance to hear those sometime in English. Okay, and then this Venerable Children explained at length, kind of a difficult topic really, but one that's quite inspiring, about the different qualities of the 3 jewels. This comes from the sublime continuum from Maitreya. And so she explained to us about the ultimate and conventional aspect of each of the 3 jewels. And we're going to focus mostly on the Buddha tonight, because that's the one that's, well, I tried to focus mostly on the Dharma in the beginning of the talk, because the Dharma is our refuge. But the one about the Buddha is completely inspiring and a little hard to understand, so it takes more time. So we do this actually to inspire ourselves, but also the more we understand this, the more we see what the qualities of the Buddha are, and actually it gives us a direction in our spiritual practice, because we see that there are eventually we'll see that there are causes. We'll understand more what are the causes. And so then we can create the causes more specifically in our practice. So here we go. So I'll just list these out first. There's the ultimate aspect and the conventional aspect of the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. And so for the Buddha jewel, the ultimate aspect is the truth body, which is the Dharmakaya in Sanskrit. And the conventional aspect is the form bodies, which is the Rupakaya. And then for the Dharma jewel, the ultimate aspect is the true paths and true cessations. And the conventional aspect is the scriptural Dharma, the teachings. And then for the Sangha jewel, the ultimate aspect is the knowledge and liberation in the mind stream of an Arya. And the conventional aspect of the Sangha jewel, is the assembly of Aryas. So that's the short version. And now we'll talk about the Buddha jewel. So when we talk about these kayas or bodies of the Buddha, we want to remember that these aren't like physical bodies. That word means more like collection. It's like a collection of qualities in a sense. And so when we talk about this for the Buddha, sometimes they talk about 2, 3, 4, 5 different, kayas. And this gives us an idea of really what a Buddha can do. And all of these are only possible because of bodhicitta, because that's the principal cause for becoming awakened. So that means, if you think about it in the big scope of things, that the Buddha has not left out one sentient being, because if one sentient being was left out, there would be no Buddha. So that's really, to me, that's kind of heartwarming, actually. It's like, okay, even little old me is included there, no matter what. Or even all the people I hear about in the news, So, so no one gets enlightened if they leave even one sentient being out of their compassionate mind. So that gives us an idea of how compassionate the Buddha is, but it also gives us an idea about how important it is for us to value every sentient being, period. No exceptions. So we need to find a way to do that when we read the news, when we walk through our day. We always have to find a way not to close the door on one sentient being, be it a person or any kind of creature. Okay, so the ultimate Buddha jewel is this truth body or Dharmakaya. So this is referring to some of the aspects of the Buddha's mind. And it's this nature of perfect abandonment and perfect realization. And so in that sense, they describe two aspects, the wisdom truth body and the nature truth body. The wisdom truth body is the jhana dharmakaya, Jnana, jhana, that jhana. So that's the omniscient mind of the Buddha. This is something that's both impermanent and eternal. Impermanent, changing moment by moment. And so it functions, so it's something that functions, so it changes moment by moment. It's a mind. But it's also, this is what we were talking about the other day a little bit. I was thinking about you when I was preparing this. Something changing by moment doesn't mean it's diluted or contaminated. So a Buddha's mind or even an Arya's mind that's perceiving emptiness, these are actually pure minds, but they're also changing moment by moment. And why is that? Because they're consciousnesses, and consciousnesses change moment by moment. Every time it's perceiving something, it's changing. So the mind changes, but it's also eternal in a couple senses. One, in the sense that when it's purified all the obscurations, and there's no cause left for those obscurations to come back. They can't come back again. And the other way that it's eternal is that the Buddha's mind doesn't end, because its basic nature is clear and knowing, and that continues on. So one moment of clear and knowing mind produces the next moment of clear and knowing mind. That continues on, and that's the same for us. This is our basic ingredients that we've got here. So in that sense, we speak about there's no beginning or no end to this flow of the clear and knowing consciousness. But there is an end to the samsaric mind. That's a different thing. And why is that? Because, if you think about it like the way we talk about it in the Buddhist context, we say the four mental aggregates, that's like the mind, the feeling, discrimination, conditioning factors, and the primary minds, the consciousness. Those, when, just as when our body dies, the form aggregates dies, these samsaric, contaminated aggregates, mental aggregates, end when we cleanse them with our scouring pad of emptiness. Okay, so those contaminated aspects of the mind aren't part of the mind. Like when they always say that analogy of how there's this blue sky and the clouds are in it, and the clouds are like these obscurations, but the sky is always there. The clouds come and go, just like in your own mind. Anger comes and goes. It's not always there. Joy comes and goes. These things come and go. They come and go. But the clearing, knowing nature is always there. And so this very subtle, extremely subtle mind, which is the nature of clear and knowing, it's uncontaminated by its nature, just like the sky is always there, whether the clouds come and go. That's the metaphor. And this mind is not inherently existent, it's not inherently contaminated, but one moment can produce the next. So when we become enlightened, there's a beginning point to become enlightened, but there's not an end, because one moment of wisdom mind produces another moment of wisdom mind. And so it's eternal in that sense. And that's what this wisdom truth body is. That's what it is. So it has three main qualities. One is the omniscient. Maybe I'll just read this as it is so I don't mix it up. Due to their omniscient knowledge, Buddhas effortlessly and perfectly understand the entire variety of phenomena, including the dispositions and capabilities of sentient beings. So that's their omniscient knowledge. And then due to their compassionate love, which is their second main quality, and their abilities, without any hesitation or self-doubt, they teach appropriate paths according to the inclinations of sentient beings. So that's the various qualities of this wisdom truth body, the Jnana Dharmakaya. And then there's this other, I don't know if I said this when we first started. Yeah, I did. So the Dharmakaya, this truth body, has two aspects. The wisdom truth body that we just spoke of, the Jnana Dharmakaya, and the nature truth body, which is the Svabhava Vikakaya. Svabhavikakaya. Svabhavikakaya. There we go, nature truth body. So in this one, cannot be completely understood by words and concepts or fathomed by sentient beings. So I'll just go on and explain it anyway. I read that and I thought, okay, that's my first thing to say. Cannot be completely understood by words and concepts or fathomed by sentient beings. But we'll go ahead and explain it anyway, of course, because we are in the Galupa tradition. And that's what we do. So this nature truth body has two types. There's the natural stainless purity. That's the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. So that's like the emptiness of inherent existence of the Buddha's mind. And then there's this freedom from all these adventitious defilements, which are like the Buddha's true cessations. So the cessations, the true cessations of a Buddha's mind, the elimination, the removal, the exhaustion of any kind of defilement, so it cannot return. And this is a permanent phenomena. It's unconditioned. It doesn't change moment by moment. So we'll restate this, and this time I'll read it so we're sure we're getting it right. The nature truth body is unconditioned and free from arising and disintegration. It possesses the natural purity of lacking inherent existence. In addition, it has the purity of adventitious defilements. So it's free of every coarse and subtle defilement. And these include the afflictive obscurations. Those are the things that keep us in samsara. And then it also is free of the cognitive obscurations. That prevents us from having the knowledge of all phenomena and being able to work effortlessly on behalf of all sentient beings. That's what we refer to, like when you get rid of your cognitive obscurations, you're a Buddha. When you get rid of the afflictive obscurations, you're essentially an arhat. So that's the ultimate Buddha jewel. And then we have the conventional Buddha jewel. That's the Rupakaya, or the form body. And these are the different manifestations that a Buddha, how the Buddha appears. Why? Because they need to communicate with us and others. So for us, we need the ones that, for the obscured mind, the dull mind, the one who's kind of asleep in the meditation hall, that doesn't know how to tune in to an omniscient mind of a Buddha more directly. We don't have that frequency going. So there's that kind. That's why the Buddha has to come in these different manifestations of his compassion. And also because we're very much in the physical, body realm of existence. We're not like formless beings and with bodies of light. Okay, so the Rupakaya, or the form bodies of Buddha, there's these then two types. One is called the resource body, sometimes also called the enjoyment body. That's the Sambhogakaya, and that abides in Pure Lands, and it teaches the Arya Bodhisattvas, so those with high realizations. And then there's the emanation bodies, the Nirmanakaya forms. And the Nirmanakaya, don't have to say form because Kaya is form, Nirmanakaya. And these are the Buddha, like Shakyamuni Buddha, that ordinary beings could perceive. So then, kind of summarizing this for a Buddha, the wisdom truth body, that is the Jnana Dharmakaya, their omniscient mind, knows all, and it can manifest, the Buddha can manifest in all these different form bodies, either as Nirmanakayas or Sambhogakayas. They manifest wherever anyone needs at any particular time. They do it spontaneously and effortlessly. That's pretty cool. Let's become Buddhas. Sounds good. And then there's the Dharma jewel. The Dharma jewel that has the ultimate and the conventional. The ultimate is the true cessations and the true paths and the mind streams of all the Aryas of all three vehicles, the Sravaka, Prayaka Buddha, and Bodhisattva vehicles. So the hearer, solitary realizer, and Bodhisattva vehicles. And then there's the conventional Dharma jewel, and this is the transmitted Dharma, the 84,000 teachings, the 12 branches of Scripture, all the Buddha's words that he taught from his compassion and from his own skill, from his own experience. So we'll kind of define these a little bit. The ultimate Dharma jewel, the true paths. These are paths here is not like a trail, it's a consciousness. These are consciousnesses that are informed by wisdom directly and non-conceptually. So they've realized the subtle selflessness of persons and of phenomena. And so what's, I think, helpful to understand is that that when you have when you directly realize emptiness, you're in the process of eliminating some degree of the defilements. And when you're doing that, actually, when you're in meditative equipoise and you're doing that, you're on an uninterrupted path when your wisdom is in the process of doing that. But once you've actually a particular defilement has been completely abandoned, a particular defilement, we do it in bits and pieces, right? Then that's the liberated path. So that's what true paths are, they're consciousnesses. And then a true cessation is this purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind that has abandoned a particular degree of obscurations. That's a lot of words. So, do you follow it?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think I better. A true cessation is the purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind that has abandoned a particular degree of obscurations. So they talk about these two factors, the natural purity and the purity of adventitious defilements. This is what we were talking about when we were talking about this nature, truth, body that can't be completely understood by words and concept or fathomed by sentient beings like me. That's what we're talking about here. So I hope you save your questions for next month on that one. So basically, true cessations are when we have vanquished a particular degree of an affliction, of an obscuration. The purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind that has abandoned a particular degree of obscurations. They're known by oneself in meditative equipoise on emptiness, and all dualistic appearances have vanished then. That's why we can't say anything about it. It's non-dual. What are you going to say? We don't understand that well enough to, I don't. Okay, so then that takes care of the Dharma jewel, and then we have the Sangha jewel. So there's the ultimate Sangha jewel and the conventional Sangha jewel. So the ultimate Sangha jewel is the true paths and the knowledge and the liberation, the true cessations, and the mind streams of an Arya. And that's sounding very familiar because it's the same as the ultimate Dharma jewel. And then we have the conventional Sangha jewel, and that's could be seen as an individual Arya being, someone who's realized emptiness directly, or an assembly of Aryas, of any of the three vehicles, the Hearer, Solitary Realizer, or Bodhisattva vehicles, any of those Aryas. Or eight, and it also includes that's redundant. Okay, so the Sangha jewel then has this inner wisdom that correctly knows reality and knows some portion of the diversity of phenomena, because it's not a Buddha. They haven't gotten rid of all of the obscurations. So they're just free of some portion of the afflictive obscurations, ignorance. The Arya Sangha is free of some portion of the afflictive obscurations, such as ignorance, afflictions, and polluted karma. There are also some that are free of some portion of the wish for only personal nirvana. So some Aryas have a type of, I guess it's called an obscuration, where they won't be generating bodhicitta right away because they're so interested in their own personal nirvana. And then there's also high-level bodhisattvas that are free of a portion of the cognitive obscurations. Those are the latencies of ignorance and the perception of inherent existence. So once you get rid of those, you're a Buddha. So these are like the 8th through 10th ground bodhisattvas that are, there's only 10 grounds and boom, then you're a Buddha. So these are the real high-level ones. So, and then the representation of the Sangha jewel is, what represents them is the community of 4 or more fully ordained monastics. And then lastly, in the Vajrayana, it's almost the same. It's a little different. The Buddha refuge is all the Buddhas and all the awakened meditational deities. And the Dharma is all the true cessations and the true paths and the minds of the Aryas of all 3 vehicles. But here the true path refers especially to the subtlest clear light mind. That's the union of bliss and emptiness. And then the Sangha is the Aryas of all 3 vehicles, including supramundane Dharma protectors and other bodhisattvas who assist practitioners on the path. And so the value of us, learning about all of this, and really is to see the excellent qualities that are our potential. And understanding what a Buddha, there's so many ways you can look at the Buddha refuge, the Dharma refuge, and the Sangha refuge. There's a lot written on especially the Buddha refuge and the Dharma refuge, really. But the Buddha, there's a lot of ways to kind of go about it. This is one way to really see how, it's a valuable way because it helps us to see really what their qualities are, and eventually we'll understand how they created those, because you need these collections, these bodies, in order to do what a Buddha does. And you can see as you think about each of them, this is what you need to help sentient beings. So by understanding this more and thinking about it and kind of working out like what's that, and then really kind of trying to take it to heart, it helps to strengthen our refuge because we know what we're turning to. It's not like, it's not like here's this statue, and I'm gonna bow to this statue. Anything that a statue does for us is a meaning that we imbue to it, which might even be for someone who's got very little obscurations. They might even see much more than we would. But at our level, we are imbuing these things with meaning. So we have to understand what those meanings are. And so I think that this helps us to see how the Buddha is completely reliable. The teachings that the Buddha has given us, we can try in our own experience to see how that, for me, I just take it this way. I don't know of any mind state that the Dharma doesn't help. That the Dharma doesn't help. I haven't found one yet. I'm not always able to use the tools, but the tools are there. It's a big toolbox. If you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. But if you have a big toolbox, you have a lot more, tools. You can deal with many more mind states, and so you learn finesse and how to do that over time. But that's my assessment. That's how it works for me. There hasn't been a mind state that I've had that I can't see that the Dharma wouldn't remedy. That's a pretty big toolbox. Not that I can apply them always, but anyway. And then the Sangha, thinking about, wow, these beings that, have these realizations and they're on their way to this, what the Buddha taught. So, does anyone have any questions or comments? We have some time left.
There's a couple questions online.
Sure, good. We have a lot of people here to help answer them.
So one was asking, so our practice is our training for guiding ourselves eventually? I think this might be where our teachers may have more confidence in us than we might have in ourselves when they don't answer questions sometimes.
Yeah, so the person is saying, the practice is to eventually learn how to guide ourselves, and that sometimes our teachers don't answer questions because they're kind of thinking you can figure that, you're capable of figuring that out for yourself. Is that a question or a comment? Question. Well, I just say yes and yes. Sometimes our questions need to be thought out better, I would say, on the side of a fledgling student, that it's good to try to clarify your questions as best you can. But I have to say, a lot of times what's great about a translator and a teacher both is sometimes they help us to get our questions straight even. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we can't even ask the question straight almost because we don't know enough. And I think it's good to ask those questions. You should ask. But on your own side, from your own side, you should try to think about things and formulate your questions well. And if they aren't answering, then there probably could be a lot of reasons for that. That could be one, that they think that you're capable. There might be other reasons. I think maybe you could have something to do with who all's in the room, how they might want to answer something, timing, when you're asking the question. Is it an appropriate time, appropriate situation? Have you asked, well, I'll just tell you about one of my teachers. There was a man who came once to the Sakya monastery, and he wanted to kind of like ask all these questions of Tasha Rinpoche, and Tasha Rinpoche took this wet rag and threw it down on the table and said, "Wipe that table off," because he was trying to teach this guy something. So he didn't answer his question right away, but he was really giving him a teaching. Now I'm not sure if the guy got it. There could be a lot of reasons. But if you aren't sure, ask. Ask. Because there could be many reasons. And then
Check if they've already answered the question for you before.
yeah, and maybe they've answered it for you before, and you're, asking the question again. Yeah, but from the side of the student, our job is to have a sincere mind, have a respectful mind. I think have a certain kind of intelligence. And if we don't ask questions, we won't develop wisdom. So we need to ask questions.
That first part about the point where we're on our own, or what?
Oh, the first part.
The way that first part was to be clear that it's not like we're just going to be launched off teacherless at some point.
Oh yeah, are we on the first part of the questions? He's saying where we're. Yeah, is the whole point to get us on our own. Well, actually, you're going to have a teacher until you're a Buddha. So you won't be cast adrift right away. But they might be for a specific thing casting you, but the basic thing we're trying to do is we need to have guidance, and then we need to learn how to internalize it. And that's a process that is going to be refined all the way to Buddhahood. So it's going to look like that. I can remember Venerable Children asking, it was Geshe Jampa Tekchok when he was here. I think it was him. Might have been Geshe Sopa, but I think she said, "Do you need a teacher all the way to enlightenment?" And he said, "Yes." And there was another question, or?
There was. Are cognitive obscurations eliminated only after the afflicted ones?
Are cognitive obscurations only eliminated after the afflictive ones? I believe so. That's the way we've learned it. But, it's funny because I remember Venerable saying sometime that it's taught that way. Let's put it that way. In our tradition, it's taught that way. But I'm sure, like every other point, there's some debate. But that's how it's taught in our tradition.
There's a follow-up to that. When did the cognitive obscurations begin to be eliminated? Does that start at the 8th bhumi, or does it vary?
Yeah, 8th, in general, the 8th bhumi. Yeah, your high, is it the term high-level bodhisattva then? Yeah. When you hit the 7th level, you're on the bodhisattva vehicle. We're talking about the bodhisattva vehicle here, obviously. You're at the level of an arhat in terms of eliminating afflictive obscurations, and then you just, in that regard, you're at the level. In other ways, in terms of like bodhicitta and things like that, you're in a different camp. You're in a different vehicle too. So I think that's answered. Any other? Okay.
Do you think the appearance of permanence, or the lack of the realization of subtle impermanence, is an afflictive obscuration?
The appearance of permanence.
I mean, what is that classified? Without that realization of subtle impermanence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess has to be by a yogic direct perceiver. We've been thinking about this.
Yes, yeah, you have to have
It's a direct perception by a yogic direct perceiver.
Yeah, the subtle impermanence is something that is perceived in yogic direct perception.
Right, but are they perceiving the actual changing moment by moment, or are they seeing the lack of permanence? Like what's appearing to the mind is question
Oh,
A.
I've never heard anything about that.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. But then question B then is that among the mental afflictions? I guess it must be.
But then it's not listed specifically.
It's not listed as one of the afflictions either.
Yeah.
But it's an important realization. So where does it fit?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I have to write that one down for PTCs.
Yeah, I have to say that when we were doing that class on the Salam, Paths and Grounds, and even when Jeffrey was teaching this, I had a huge confusion about this until we got it clarified that one day on our Tuesday class, about how these afflictions were being abandoned.
Right.
I never understood the chart correctly. It was so obvious to everyone but me for months and years, I think. So yeah, it was a portion of the afflictions, if I remember right, of a given affliction.
Yeah, the list is very specific.
Yeah, the list is very specific, but it's a portion of those. So there's like levels, in a sense, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. For instance, like anger, it's the one that's good. We have levels of anger, and so we're going to have levels of abandonment of that because you don't get rid of anger fully until you're pretty far along on the bodhisattva bhumis, friends. It's good to know. So when you get like hard on your, I remember getting very frustrated. I remember exactly when I asked this question, it would have been 2008 when I was down in Long Beach. And I remember asking this Geshe this question. I was just so frustrated and working with my own anger, and I was like, why am I not doing better with this? And and he said, well, you're going to be on this bhumi before you get rid of it. And I said, okay, I'll relax then. Because that's like, to be it on any bhumi, you've got a direct realization of emptiness. To have that, you've got calm abiding meditation. I was like, okay, that's down the road a ways. I can relax here. It's not going away in the next year. It was helpful for me. To me, all this knowledge is like very helpful. It makes me more realistic about, more realistic, and then I get less frustrated. Yeah, hi.
When the Shakyamuni Buddha, for example, this time finished and the next Buddha appears, his consciousness as well as the consciousnesses of the previous Buddhas are still there, or
our consciousnesses are eternal.
yes,
So is
that's
yours.
what you say. But why then?
Why does another Buddha have to come?
And the new Buddha is coming.
Oh boy, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Why?
Different karma.
Well, yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind is the karma, but
Yeah.
karma of beings. Our job is to actually tune in, because the Buddhas are spontaneously there. Like we have that thing in one of our sadhanas, where the sincere mind abounds, the Buddhas appear. And it's done in the midst of this beautiful sadhana. And it's how it feels when you're at your full ordination too. And even it's how it's felt at both of my ordinations too. Maybe you had that experience too. It's just like they set up these ordinations. The Buddha was and the people after were so wise, that happens when you take refuge too. When I took refuge, same. It's where your mind is that makes this happen. So from our side, that's our job, and the Buddha's spontaneously there. You don't have to worry about that part, if we can just get ourselves from our own side coming with the, maybe looking in the Lam Rim about becoming a proper student. It's all described there. That's the short answer.
But to come back to the Buddhas, why it's a different Buddha, like we have medicine Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, they all have different
Qualities, specialties. Yeah.
So in that time, whenever the Maitreya will come, it would be probably that energy that is needed.
Yeah, what I like about it is that he's not sitting cross-legged.
Sitting in a chair.
Sitting in a chair. I can't sit on the floor. I noticed that.
He has a bed like this too, right?
That's right. The Buddha of love. Anyway, hey, I sit in front of that Tonka. You can't. I'm a physical therapist by trade. I notice these things.
I say that the Buddhas used to be ordinary beings. So I have to think what Venerable Chini says of that as a particular
realm and a particular our karma as these particular beings
Mhm.
seem to have the karma with these particular beings who have become awakened in these particular aspects.
Yeah.
I mean, they just didn't come out of
Yeah.
nowhere. They have arisen from ordinary
Yeah.
circumstances.
I bet Maitreya can sit in the full
I bet.
Vajra
Full
position,
Vajra
in the Vajra posture. And I'd have to say, from having to sit in all these different postures, I think that would be the best.
Yes.
You know, to have the postures they describe in our teachings definitely have, what they say about them seems to be true from my gross, coarse experience, having played around with having to sit in different postures. I think there's something to try to aspire to if you're young.
You know, the thing about the karma too, I mean, that's the reason we have to become Buddhists too.
Oh yeah, that's a big point. The reason we have to become Buddhas also, that's a good thing, is because we have karmic connections. And I was reading about this when I was preparing for this. Okay, from the Buddhist worldview, there's like scads of universes, right? But 10 universes over, the Buddha might not know those folks. But we know these folks in this one. You know, what do they say? Every 7 people, you know everyone on the planet or something through knowing 7 people. You know, seven people out. You've 7 degrees of separation between everyone on the planet or something. So we have a lot of karma with the people on the beings on this planet. And so it's the karmic connection that's needed for a Buddha to help, too. That's a big point. That's kind of like the push for us. Like, you can't really rely on another Buddha because they may not have a karmic connection with beings that you have connections with. So that's like part of our, we have to bring that into our motivation, our long-term view. What needs to happen here? Well, think about it. Does everyone know that creature they just found on the bottom of the ocean 7 miles down that they've never seen before? I don't think that maybe over on planet 10 universes over, they're going to necessarily know about that being. They found a new kind of fish that's never been seen before, the deepest part of the ocean.
The Buddha would know about it, but that fish might not have the karma with that Buddha.
Yeah.
It's the side of the other.
Sentient being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Buddha
think
for
that
sure knows.
some of those fish just saw their first humans. Well, they're not yet, maybe. They're trying to trap them and bring them up. Yes?
As you guys are describing this, I was just imagining, what that would be like, and I just imagined all of these, like, infinite number of Buddhas sitting above me, kind of all huddled over, staring at me, just waiting for me to do something or to unwind to get in some state where one of them, it raises enough so one of them can help me. And then, that one gets all excited, and the rest of them get all excited, and then that one helps me, and then they're waiting again.
Yeah.
To do something,
Yeah.
to do some more.
Turn that dial. Yeah. That's a good image.
The end of our Vajrasattva retreat, I always think of this. We did skits,
Mhm.
and in that skit, Bet's rear and Leah were like Vajrasattva, and their whole thing was 6 times a day they invoke us, and then they forget about us. It's like this. I mean, I think about that all the time to this day. 6 times a day they invoke us, and then they forget about us.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That pretty much says it.
Yeah.
But keep bringing the mind back.
Maybe you have to repeat that.
I think they heard. I think they heard. We've.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got it. Okay, so let's
Okay, thank you.
dedicate, and any good energy from this, let's send out to beings all over this planet, especially those who are in need at this moment. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. we'll go ahead and we'll complete our prayers. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous action spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Peerless Supreme Spiritual Leader, Omniscient King of the Shakyas, Motherly Tara, Supreme Bestower of longevity and wisdom, vast ocean assembly of sources of refuge, grant propitiousness here and now for a nectar of benefit and bliss to flow. With a clear mind of extensive learning gained from following the wondrous traditions of Tupten, the able one's teachings, you bring clarity to masses of disciples with the light of children, the lamp of the Dharma. May your lotus feet remain unfaltering for a very long time. Through your dharmic deeds of hearing, thinking, meditating, and so on, place those who seek the liberated path in harmony through immaculate discipline. Please lead all beings to liberation with undeclining excellent qualities of scripture and insight, and establish them in a glory of eternal bliss. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West, flourish.